You've got real potential, Michael. If you know how to be loyal. She whispered that night by the lake. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. My name's Michael Trent, I'm 33, and for the past 4 years, I've worked as a project manager at Ridgewell Motors in San Antonio. I earned my place, starting as a junior analyst, clawing my way up through grit and late nights. But none of that prepared me for what happened at the Lake Tahoe retreat. Vanessa Crane, my supervisor for the last 18 months, had always been sharp, decisive, the kind of leader who could rebuild a failing budget in 10 minutes. She hired me, promoted me twice, and gave me room to grow. I respected her, trusted her. Until that night, we were celebrating a record quarter, 3 massive contracts landed, and my team had delivered every milestone early. The retreat was supposed to be a reward, but when Vanessa pulled me aside near the bonfire and led me to the dock, everything shifted. Her compliments about my performance turned into an offer fast, track promotion to senior management, no red tape. If I showed her loyalty, that night, I laughed it off, politely walked away. Thought it was the wine talking, but come Monday morning, my permissions were revoked, my projects reassigned, and the sabotage had only just begun. By the time I stepped into the office Monday morning, I knew something was off. Maria, Vanessa Crane's assistant, barely looked me in the eye when she handed me a new stack of project folders. My usual 9 a.m. check-in with Vanessa had been delayed until 2 p.m., no explanation. But what caught me most off guard was when I tried accessing the client database and found my permissions had been restricted. I submitted a help desk ticket, assuming it was a system glitch after the retreat. But deep down I was starting to feel the shift. That 2 p.m. meeting lasted all of 12 minutes. Vanessa sat across from me like nothing had happened at the lake. She slid 3 new project assignments across the table, each one heavier than the last, every deadline tighter than the last. When I raised a concern about resource allocation or delivery timelines, she just stared coldly at me. These are the deadlines, Michael, figure it out. That night I stayed until 8 p.m. trying to untangle the mess. It didn't make sense, until it did. This wasn't mismanagement. It was calculated. Over the next 3 weeks, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every project I was given came with impossible deadlines and little to no support. Client meetings I'd scheduled were mysteriously canceled. Reports I submitted were returned for revisions that directly contradicted earlier feedback. Then came the breaking point, a major presentation to one of our top clients, Greystone Automotive. I'd spent 2 weeks crafting the proposal, budget, roadmap, rollout, every detail triple-checked. Vanessa had reviewed and approved every slide. 20 minutes before the meeting, she pulled me aside. "I'm going to take the lead on this one," she said. "You'll be there in case any technical questions come up." I sat in silence as she stood in front of our clients and presented every bit of work I had poured myself into, without so much as a nod to my involvement. And when Greystone greenlit the $8 million contract, she smiled, shook their hands, and looked back at me with a smirk that cut deeper than words. "Good support work, Michael. Maybe you'll be ready for lead presentations in a few more years." I didn't react. Not then. I just drove home and sat in the car for nearly an hour, staring at the steering wheel, piecing it all together. That retreat, that moment on the dock, her hand on my arm, the loyalty she expected, and my quiet refusal. Vanessa was punishing me, slowly, systematically, and professionally, and if I didn't act, she was going to burn my reputation to the ground before I even knew the fire had started. That night, I started documenting everything. Timestamps, emails, changes in assignments, meeting notes. I didn't have power, but I had records. And I remembered something else, the security system at the retreat. Vanessa had personally approved every detail of that weekend, including the cameras, including the audio surveillance. I remembered seeing a small black dumb camera near the bonfire, pointed right toward the dock where our conversation had taken place. I made a discreet call to an old friend who worked in corporate security. I asked vague questions about audio retention policies at retreat centers. Then I contacted the retreat center's management directly with a carefully worded email. I didn't accuse anyone. I simply asked if I could obtain footage from a specific date and time, framing it as a personal matter related to a lost item. They responded politely and confirmed the system held archived footage for up to 3 years, including audio. There would be a processing fee, but yes, the footage from that night was still available. Vanessa had no idea. She'd lit the match. But she was the one who had built the bonfire. I wasn't about to go to war without a plan, and I sure wasn't going to let Vanessa Crane write the ending to my story. The night I received confirmation that the retreat center had the security footage, I paid the processing fee immediately. What I got back 2 days later wasn't just helpful. It was damning. Clear audio, multiple angles, timestamps. There was no way to misinterpret what was said on that doc. Vanessa's voice was unmistakable. Her proposition was unambiguous, and the retaliation that followed. Now backed by her own documented project assignments, deadline changes, and performance notes. But I wasn't ready to go nuclear. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she would go. For the next few weeks, I worked like a machine. The performance improvement plan she slapped on me was brutal. 18-hour days, back-to-back deadlines, contradictory goals designed to make me fail. I met every one of them, barely slept. Sacrificed weekends. Turned in perfect work only to see her shift the goalposts again and again. She was trying to break me. Mentally, professionally, and emotionally. But I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was documenting. Every unreasonable demand. Every mischaracterized email. Every meeting that got reassigned. I kept a clean, dated record of every instance of retaliation, and through it all, I said nothing. I didn't argue. Didn't push back. Just nodded, delivered, and saved the receipts. Then, I reached out to someone I hadn't talked to in months. Trevor Blake, a former colleague who had suddenly resigned 6 months earlier. We used to work closely, and it always seemed strange how quickly he disappeared from Ironforge Systems. When we sat down for coffee, he was hesitant. Until I mentioned Vanessa. His expression changed immediately. "She did the same thing to me?" Trevor said, voice low, almost word for word. At last the pattern snapped into full view. The previous year's retreat, Vanessa had approached him late at night after dinner. Similar tone, similar offer, fast-track promotion in exchange for loyalty. When he turned her down, everything changed. Deadlines became impossible. Feedback turned hostile. Eventually, he was forced to resign to protect what was left of his career. But I didn't have proof, he said, shoulders heavy. She was always careful. She made it look like I just couldn't keep up. Not anymore. I had proof. And now, so would he. Over the next several days, I quietly contacted 2 more former employees, both men. Both had attended different retreats. Both left shortly after abrupt and unexplained clashes with Vanessa. And both shared stories that lined up almost exactly with what had happened to Trevor and to me. Vanessa had been pulling this same move for over 3 years, using her position to manipulate subordinates and destroy anyone who rejected her advances. But because she spread the damage out over time, and because no one ever compared notes, it all looked like isolated performance issues. HR never connected the dots. Now I had the dots, and I had the footage. Even better, the retreat center confirmed they had archived video from previous years. For insurance purposes, all I had to do was submit dates, pay the processing fee, and wait. If Vanessa had repeated her behavior at those retreats, and it certainly seemed like she had, it would all be on tape. She didn't just sabotage me. She'd built a quiet pattern of harassment and retaliation that had destroyed careers. And now, I was going to stop it. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about accountability. For me, for Trevor, for the others who were forced to leave in silence. I wasn't just building a case. I was building a wall she couldn't climb over, slither under, or bulldoze through. And once that wall was done, Vanessa Crane was going to hit it face first. I chose Monday to act. Not because it was the first day of the week, but because I wanted Vanessa to start the week with a bang. I walked into the conference room at 9:00 a.m., not the usual conference room, but the 7th floor conference room where the senior executives worked. I had sent a formal request to HR the week before, with the simple subject line, HR request formal complaint with supporting evidence. When I walked in, 3 people were already seated. Julie Romero from HR, Martin Keller, VP of Legal, and Ray Tompkins, the engineering executive, whom I had only met at internal events. Julie began in a soft voice, "Michael, are you saying that there is clear evidence of inappropriate behavior by your direct manager?" I said nothing. I just opened the USB drive I had prepared, plugged it into the projector, and played the video. The room was dead silent as the sound rang out. Vanessa's voice, deliberate, clear. "You've got real potential, Michael. But loyalty comes in many forms." Then came my refusal, and the way she smiled before retreating. Julie looked up at me, her gaze shifting from bewilderment to seriousness. Martin was taking notes, and Ray, he raised his eyebrows, but he wasn't surprised. as if, deep down, he had suspected something fishy was going on. I also have additional documentation, I said, opening the folder on the table. Emails requesting impossible tasks, sudden changes in system permissions, and a clear timeline of meetings canceled without cause. I also have 3 statements from former employees who experienced similar patterns of abuse from the same person. Vanessa Crane. Julie flipped through a few pages, and Martin looked at me thoughtfully, and they agreed to provide formal statements if asked. I asked for a signature. I replied, "They just need to be safe." The 3 people in the room exchanged a brief look. Ray was the first to speak. "Michael, this is serious. We will be launching an immediate investigation. In the meantime, you will be temporarily removed from Vanessa's department to avoid any conflict of interest." I nodded. Julie added, "And Vanessa will be placed on administrative leave. We need to access all personnel files, evaluation responses, and verify allegations of inappropriate behavior from previous retreats." I stood up and slowly gathered my papers. "Before leaving," Ray added, his voice clear, "thank you for not staying silent. Not many people have the courage to do this." 3 hours later, Vanessa disappeared from the office. No one has seen her since. An internal notice was sent out. The department manager is on leave for personal reasons. But everyone sensed it. It wasn't a leave. It was the beginning of the truth being revealed. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't taking revenge. I was just relieved. Not because I won, but because I didn't let myself be buried in silence like those who came before me. And I knew this was just the beginning. The official announcement came on a Thursday afternoon. Effective immediately, Vanessa Crane has been terminated from her position at Ridgewell Motors following internal investigation findings. There was no grand press release, no ceremony. Just a discreet email from Human Resources sent to all department staff. But the hallway whispers, they echoed like thunder. Some were shocked. Some weren't. Most just quietly nodded, as if they'd sensed something was off all along. As for me, I didn't feel victorious. I felt resolved. Vanessa didn't just lose her job. She lost her standing, her network, and the shield of fear she'd built around herself. The investigation uncovered multiple instances of abuse tied to retreat events over the past 3 years. The stories matched, the patterns aligned, and the recordings sealed it. 2 former employees, Trevor Blake and Jordan Daniels, agreed to testify not for revenge but for closure, for their names once quietly erased to be restored. Within days, Ridgewell announced the start of a broader internal audit, focused on abuse of power, retaliation, and ethical oversight. Senior leadership brought in an external compliance firm to re-evaluate their management training programs. For the first time in years, employees were asked what they needed to feel safe, heard, and supported. But my part at Ridgewell was nearing its end. After everything, I knew I didn't want to stay in the same building, where I'd endured months of silent sabotage. I didn't want to smile across conference tables at managers who once looked the other way. I didn't want a promotion as an apology. What I wanted was a fresh start, on my own terms. So I took a week off, went back home to Amarillo, sat on my dad's porch with a cold glass of sweet tea, listening to the wind move through the cottonwoods. I let myself breathe for the first time in months. That's when the offer came in. A mid-sized automotive firm based out of Denver, Stellar Track Innovations, had caught wind of what happened. Their VP of operations had read the summary of the HR findings and tracked me down through a mutual connection. They weren't just offering me a job, they were offering autonomy, a seat at the table, a culture built on transparency, something I never thought I'd hear in a job pitch. It didn't take long for me to say yes. Today, I'm head of project systems at Stellar Track. I lead a team of 15, and we're building systems that actually make people's jobs easier, not harder. My team knows my door is always open. I've hired 2 former Ridgewell employees, including Jordan, who now handles systems analytics and is thriving. And Vanessa. Last I heard, she applied at 2 smaller consulting firms and was politely declined. Word gets around, especially when your downfall includes digital proof and a trail of burned bridges. But I don't think about her much anymore. She's not the point of this story. What matters is this silence is where abuse thrives, and documentation. That's how you take its power away. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just let the truth speak, loud and clear. Looking back now, I don't carry bitterness, just clarity. Vanessa thought she could bury me with deadlines and silence. What she didn't know was that quiet people often carry the sharpest tools: patience, documentation, and conviction. I never raised my voice. I never played her game. I just kept the receipts, stayed steady, and let the truth unravel everything she'd built on fear. And because of that, not only did I walk away with my dignity intact, I helped others reclaim theirs too. I'm now in a place where my voice matters, where leadership means listening, not intimidation. And if I've learned anything from this, it's this: you don't have to match someone's cruelty to defeat it. Sometimes, you just have to outlast it, with integrity. If someone's treating you unfairly, document it. Speak up when it's safe. And know this: being calm is not weakness. It's power under control. Whether it's a toxic workplace, a manipulative partner, or someone trying to dim your light, you deserve better. And if you've ever walked through something like this, you are not alone. Tell me in the comments, have you ever stood your ground in silence and won? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs strength today. Because here, we turn quiet stories into powerful endings.